Thank you for staying with us. As Nigeria begins to count another year, the long wait for a country where her citizens can thrive in the business world, people can move around safely, is still the basic dream for any Nigerian. In President Tinubu's speech, he encourages Nigerians to be patient as reforms in the country takes time. The president also promised the commencement of implementation of other policies that will improve lives and livelihood. Many say the government is making progress, but they would like to see an improvement in living conditions, the business environment, as well as the fight against poverty. We have details in this report.
Dear compatriots,
President Bola Tinubu's Independence Day broadcast to the country to commemorate Nigeria's 63rd anniversary. Also his first as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
did not assist.
His message to Nigerians was filled with hope in a moment of despair caused by prevailing national challenges.
Here, our nation stands, and here we shall remain.
There was also something to cheer about for the low-income earners at a time when the country is at the brink of a nationwide strike that has so far defied all negotiations and efforts to avert a shutdown of the economy.
Here,
President Tinubu addressed some of the demands put on the table by organized labor, especially with regards to improved and cheaper public transportation for workers and the implementation of other interventions.
we have opened a new chapter in public transportation through the development of cheaper, safer, compressed natural gas, the CNG, bus. These buses will operate at a fraction of current fuel prices, positively affecting transport fare.
Fixing the economy and improving the quality of lives has been one of the key priorities of President Tinubu's administration. So far, efforts are underway to review the monetary policy, introduce tax reforms, and create employment.
We are increasing investment.
The president saluted the efforts of the troops and other security agencies in ensuring the safety of lives and property. He acknowledged the improved synergy between security agencies and appreciated the support of other arms of government and critical partners working to enhance the process of governance.
Here, I salute and commend our gallant security forces for keeping us safe and securing our territorial integrity. Many have paid the ultimate sacrifice. We remember them today. The next 6 months, the average low-grade worker shall receive an additional 25,000 naira per month.
Nigerians already look forward to the rollout of plans and implementation of programs put in place by the Tinubu administration to improve the fortunes of the country. The president also promised to run an inclusive government that will be fair to all, especially women, youth, and people with disability. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Joining us in the studio is a public affairs analyst, Ayodele Adewale. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And we also have APC Youth stalwart ICT expert, Ni Budimowo. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, let me begin with you, Ayodele. What was the high point for you from that address made by the president yesterday?
Well, the high point was creating an avenue for the low-income earners, especially with the increment that he just gave. And of course, focusing more on the CNG conversion, because by the time it comes on board, definitely services will go down in terms of transportation, which again will lead to reduction of prices across all sectors and all of that. He also spoke on security, which is the most important in any country's development. in order to attract investment and, of course, to grow the economy. He has done a lot in that area. Like he said, agencies are now sharing intelligence, which is very important. Prior to now, Nigerian security agencies have not been known to be working in sync with each other. And he also spoke about infrastructure funds. He has very much unlocked that area. So anybody that wants to take advantage of that particular system can now focus on that. And of course, the CBN.
Yeah.
It is very, very important to get it right because it has become a sinkhole in our economic development. Mr. Yemi Cardoso is a very good square peg in square hole, and other people who have also been brought on board to join him, very good people who have done very well for themselves and the various platforms that they've come from.
Right, let me come to you now, Annie. For you, did the speech raise some level of hope from your perspective in the minds of Nigerians from what you heard? Do you believe it did that?
Good morning.
Morning again.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning to my Igbo, and good morning to all Nigerians. I think it did. You know, there's a quote from the great economist Adam Smith about, you know, nations not becoming wealthy just by doing trivial things, but by focusing on the economic prosperity of their people.
Right.
We are in a very trying time period in Nigeria at the moment, and everybody is feeling, you know, the strain. And I think that message, the message he passed yesterday, is essentially like our own State of the Union speech, where the president will come and address the nation and talk about the challenges, the existing challenges that they are trying to address, and the quick wins and the accrued gains that they've made. And I think he passed that message. And he, most importantly, addressed a fundamental point about the cost of living crisis in Nigeria at the moment, driven largely by inflation, energy inflation, and of course the FX issue. He had addressed, he has passed the message that, look, we are on top of this challenge, and we are working towards resolving it over the long term. On the minimum wage issue, you know, from the speech and up until the early hours today, there have been new developments from the initial
wage
announcement.
awards.
Yes. And I think that's a signal. I think everybody understands that, of course, federal workers are not the majority of Nigerians, but it's a message. The federal government has passed the message that there's an intervention to support people's households across the federal civil service, and that's a message to all other state governors as well. So that's what we are now looking towards. That okay, how will the state governors also respond to this, and of course local government council chairmen as well, to ensure that, you know, they are addressing the needs of households across Nigeria. I think the president passed that message, and it's something that everyone will follow through, hopefully.
Now, there's been divergent reactions to this statement. You have mentioned a critical aspect that Nigerians have been reacting to. Yes, you mentioned the fact that the focus was on federal government workers, and then the private sector has been speaking. How about us? Where are we in the scheme of things in this whole statement? Who is speaking for us? Because we are in this country as well. And the president is seen as a father of the nation, so this should, you know, cover every one of us as it is. That's on the one hand. There's also the aspect of pensioners. We're speaking with someone here yesterday who also said that who is speaking for them? Pensioners are also vulnerable at this time because what they receive as pension is nothing to really write home about when you look at the state of the economy as it is. These are the issues that some Nigerians are raising. Your reaction?
You're absolutely correct. You know, the common theme in everything you just said is inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation is eroding the value of the naira, you know, what we can buy, and I think it's disproportionately affecting pensioners because, you know, they're no longer earning, and, you know, their pension benefits are becoming increasingly worthless. Sorry to use that term, but that is the reality of it. I think, first of all, one of the things the government needs to manage, and which they're trying to manage, is inflation, right? And as they've passed this this wage increment, time-limited wage increment, the expectation is that private sector, and also subnational will follow through. Now, it doesn't happen automatically. There has to be other support for them. And if you look at the speech, he talked about some other things. For example, the support for interventions to support businesses, yes. Right? So we have about
MSMEs.
Yes, MSMEs, and also large businesses. I think they have about 200 billion that have been earmarked to support businesses. About 75 billion for large manufacturing, and I'm glad they focused on manufacturing. There's another 75 billion for MSMEs, small startups. Where they can get about 500,000 to 1 million naira, depending on your needs. They're targeting about 100,000 of them across the nation. And there's another 50 billion for very small, what they call nano businesses, where I think the plan is to disperse that money through the local governments, about 774 local governments across Nigeria. Each chairman is meant to identify at least about 1,000 businesses in the locale, and they'll disperse it that way. So it's a hierarchical approach. I think if done well, it will definitely manage the fiscal crisis that we have right now. It will also, and if done in such a way that you can ensure that people are using that money for productive activities, right? It would also help with our general productivity as a nation, right? So in as much as, we need to fix this problem, we need to increase our productivity. I think everybody understands that. But businesses themselves, if you want them to give their employees another wage increment, they'll tell you, look, we need support, we need tax breaks, which, again, the president addressed that, look, we have a fiscal and tax reform committee that's working, right, and they're going to reduce taxes. I think that the gentleman in charge has given some indication that there are not going to be any new taxes, but they are going to work on ensuring that people they'll reduce multiple taxation and provide support for businesses so that they can increase their productive activity. I think all these things can be done very well. And I think one thing that's I'm hoping that will happen is that the CBN itself, with a new composition, will use some of the tools in its arsenal to ensure that, as monies are being released through the development finance institutions into the economy, that monies are being used for the right purposes. And they have the tools, such as their CBDCs, to ensure that's done correctly.
Right. Because another aspect is still on this matter, access. Who does? Yes, the government has said this money is, for instance, we're giving 25,000 naira to 15 million households who have now been brought into the safety net, and there are concerns that who are those on the social register? Who are these persons? How do we identify them? Because this has been the conversation that we have been having over the years with regards to monies being given to persons, and Nigerians are saying we do not even know who these people are who are getting these monies, and we keep hearing government making so much effort, yet we are not seeing or hearing how or who is involved. Who are these persons that are benefiting from efforts being put in place by government? How do you want the government to address that aspect this time around, now that it is spreading the social safety net to accommodate 15 million more persons?
Well, basically, the government have filtered the social register, and they are gathering more data. I saw recently Mrs. Betta Edu coming to Makoko to interface with people, talk with them and all of that. And I also know that they are interfacing with state government to also work with various community development organizations and NGOs and all of that in order to gather data. And these data are very organic because they are also tied to your NIM. And they are tied to banking institutions. It's not as if they'll be going to give people cash readily and all of this. And training will also be given to people in order to cascade their capacities for production, for entrepreneurial skills and other sundry matters. So these are ways of deepening it. For Lagos State, if you look at what they did recently, they're not just giving people these palliative materials in a discrepant way. They boxed it. They are going to the verifiable demography within the state in order to get it to them. They are also investing massively in transportation. You could see the Lagos State governor promising that before December or by December, the red line will come upstream. The blue line has already come upstream. It has reduced the amount of monies coming out of people's pocket into transport and all sundry matters. They've also crashed down transportation fare from the blue buses and all of these things. And I think state government should also key into this, because when you key into it properly, the workings of the federal government will come upstream very, very fast. And the federal government is not saturating a lot of this effort to themselves. They are also dispensing it through the state government. And they've also said to state governors that, look, you must be very responsive to the people while we keep watch, and of course bring in bigger capacities of the derivative. And they've also said they're going to train people in order to help with this conversion. And I know that they'll be working with the National Automobile Technician Association, that's NATA. By the time you train about 1,000 NATA members in each of the 37 states, it goes down to the local government, goes down everywhere, and these things will come up very quickly. And I want to also believe that in each senatorial district, they're going to create a hub where these conversion materials will be easily purchased, and not just purchasing fake ones, because they have to also curb it. Some Nigerians might want to take advantage of bringing in fake spare parts. But the federal government are going to bring in the very good one, the original one, and domesticate it all across the country. Then small SMEs too can start production, local production. By the time you see the prototype, these things are not too Herculean. Like in my house now, I've said it about 2 months ago or 3, that already my generator is powered by gas, right? And these things are not too big tech. Because I remember when I was young, around 1991 or 92, we used to have this Egbo in the community, an elder brother. His name was Aki Ashaga. Aki came from UK with this Mazda. You understand, the vehicle. The Mazda was using gas, and they had to convert it to petrol. So it tells you that the technology has been here a long time. So what we are doing now is to domesticate it fast. And of course, when you do that, there'll be more competition for hydrocarbon energy. The NNPC production plant across now, especially the one in the south side in River State, will be upstream by December. So when that one comes, there'll be a crash. But again, gas is better, it's cheaper, it's cleaner, and more people can take advantage of that. And I believe that's why the president has said 6 months for these funds to be given to people as a support. Because if you don't do that, and you don't mention that, I can assure you prices of goods and services will go up.
Skyrocket.
Now, to bring it down becomes a problem.
A challenge, yes.
Becomes a problem. Even when the economy is fairer, it becomes a problem. How do you now reduce the wages? How do you reduce it? How do you reduce that? So again, they are being very methodic and very careful.
Interesting. Now, let me come back to some issues you mentioned, talking about state government's involvement, which he also touched on, as well as local government involvement. We see what's happening in Ogun State, for instance, where a local government chairman mentioned that, or accused the governor of perhaps amassing some of the monies meant for palliatives, so to speak, and we see what the situation is with regards to that. How do we address some of these issues where we look at local government chairman trying to, perhaps assert their authorities and do certain things, but we still see governors standing in the way? We have always talked about local government autonomy, yet we are still having a struggle with all of that. And then we saw what happened in, I think, Ondo State, where there was a struggle with regards to palliatives. There was a scuffle, so to speak. I mean, this whole palliative thing is seemingly, springing up some issues that also needs to be addressed.
Okay. I think, generally speaking, as Comrade Adewale mentioned, that first of all, you want to start off with a very coherent database and know who are these beneficiaries, right? In the past, there have been concerns about knowing who the beneficiaries of all these interventions are, right? And I think it's an ongoing discussion and an ongoing process to clean up the database. And as the Honourable Minister had mentioned, that look, they are not discarding anything, but they're going to sanitize their database and ensure that they can, when they are dispersing benefits to people, it is going to be done through an auditable process, right? And another thing that that is also possible with technology is to ensure that you reduce the number of middlemen, and overheads in the process of disbursement. And earlier on, I also talked about, the role of the central bank and the tools in its arsenal to support both from federal and subnational agencies and governments, support them with tools that ensure that people who are listed as beneficiaries exist, they're identified and they meet the qualifications, and crucially, they're using the funds that they are being given for the purposes that it was given.
Right.
I think that is the key thing that we should focus on. I think that's what the government, the president has charged them with, and that's what they're going to do.
Of course, but then if the government has said that it has, extended some responsibility to the states, and we are seeing some of these issues that I mentioned spring up, how then does it get, because they are meant to be the closest to the people. The local government is also meant to be the closest to the people. If they cannot function as they should, so how then do we move forward with addressing some of the challenges that we are seeing?
You see, some of the hiccups you're going to have is that, for instance, if some states are not plugging in, you must also understand that we have a guideline in the Nigerian Constitution. The federal government cannot do the work of the state.
Absolutely.
The state is independent. But again, they have to come together, have a roadmap, and have a design of working the system, which they all have to key into it. But the citizens themselves must be very watchful. The federal government have given directive. They've given a guideline. A lot of states must plug in. Lagos State is already plugging in, right? River State is plugging in. Several other states are plugging in. You're going to have some states that will be struggling to plug in. But again, the federal government will come and give some level of support. You understand? In order to teach them appropriately, but they also have to be accountable to those funds.
So how do we hold them to account?
The people, the civil society, the press. You see, I keep telling people that it is easy to get system working nowadays. Remember in those days where you have police brutality and people are scared about, telling the police what is right that you know? Now you just use your phone. Citizens' responsibility. If the federal government has said this is what we want to do, and the state have plugged into it, every citizen must carry their phone. If they're not doing it well, say something. By the time you start saying something, even if they don't want to work, they'll be forced to work.
Isn't that what the local government chairman tried to do in Ogun State, and he's facing the brunt as it is right now?
I wouldn't say he's facing the brunt, but again, he's facing the challenge.
Right.
The challenge is for the legal system, which he has approached, to do what is right, right? The citizens of Ogun State, who are the main key stakeholders, to sit down and try to resolve the matter. If they have claimed that X, Y, Z have happened, the other party must come to defend himself. If there's a gap, the anti-corruption agency is there to also launch an investigation. And whoever that is culpable, going for it. It's very clear.
Right.
And the president have not had it easy all over his life. I have not had it easy. You have not had it easy. But again, we must go through the hog of the struggle in order to put things right.
Now, talking about the hog of a struggle, the president mentioned something. He said the travails we have endured is what will strengthen us as it is. And there's been so much that is going on that Nigerians are looking in hope that this will address. Well, the government has put measures in place, but how is this going to strengthen us is a question they are looking that some Nigerians are asking. We have had issues with profiling here and there leading up to the election, and we have seen that these issues are still very much with us. Even when we had the civil war, some of these issues were the ones that sprang up at the time. I'm wondering how this has been able to strengthen us over the years from your perspective, as the president mentioned.
Well, let me take a historical context to this, right? Yeah. We are celebrating our 63rd anniversary, independence anniversary. And, it's not a common thing across Africa. There have been there are countries that got their independence before or after us, and they've had coups, and they've not been able to sustain their democracy. The president said, when he started his speech, that this is our we've done 7 consecutive elections, right? And even within that, we've had change of party, right? And we have a strong multi-party system. In the last election, we had 3 different parties, that had that, or more, or 4, made a strong showing. So we have a very deep and robust electoral system and democratic system, and we are building it. It's a process. One of the stresses come usually from economic issues, right? If everybody is if there's economic prosperity across the land, people aren't going to be worried about essentially mundane issues about what is his surname? Is he allowed to do that role or she allowed to do that role? All these little issues that are not germane to the core challenges of Nigerians. And so when he talks about these problems that we've had, and he's talking about solutions and the process in which we are solving these problems and we are working together, he's trying to give us, well, to use the campaign term, renewed hope. Yeah, that we are moving. We're not stuck in one place. Yes, we are in a very tough period right now, but we have a process to resolve it. And I think what perhaps illustrates this is what happened over yesterday, where we have on one side we have the Labour Party, the NLC.
Yes, organized labor.
Yeah, sometimes you don't know what the difference is. But, you have the NLC, right? And they've taken a stance that is at odds with what the government stance is. But they've come together and they've sat down like gentlemen and ladies, and they've resolved the issues, right? I think that's
they're still considering it because they say they'll have a meeting today.
I know. But let's be optimistic.
You are positive that
I'm very
this strike
positive.
wouldn't happen.
One thing is good. Yeah. So when you look at the videos that came out, the gentlemen and the ladies that came out, and you saw someone like Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila leading it. This is a man that carries an air of integrity around him, right? So people look at that and say, and I had someone say this to me, and they're glad that people like that are leading this effort because they believe that when they say these things, the government, when they make a promise on behalf of the government, they're going to follow it through because they don't want to stain their name because they've spent a career building that reputation. So when you see men of integrity, leading the discussion on behalf of the government, and you have people on the side of Labour with good intentions, and they can come to at least some sort of consensus agreement, then that's a good thing. That tells me that no matter what our differences are across the nation, we can still come together, sit down, and discuss it. As long as we keep the discussion going, then we will be able to resolve these problems.
Right. Like the president said, we are joined by a common thirst for peace and prosperity. How do you see, or what's your perspective of that statement?
The statement is very deep. He has only told everyone that I'm part of you. No matter what you're feeling now, I also feel it, and I felt it, and I'm very strong that we're going to get out of it. It's just a journey. It's a painful journey, but at the end of it, we're going to get out of it. And like he said, he doesn't want to build a house on mud. It won't last. It will sink. And over the years, we've been building our development on mud, not on concrete pile that can hold us for eternity. And that's why he's doing the sweep of cleanliness in the CBN, in the tax policies, and so many things. In this country, companies have come out to say that they are being taxed in multiple ways, and these things are not helping their business to grow. The president, as a businessman, also knows these things, and that's why he has put up that special committee that have people, from various backgrounds to sit down and come out with a very clean sheet that will help business grow and, of course, help the country to stay and attract the needed investment that we desire. Look at the new road that a company now wants to build from Lagos to Abuja, you understand, on a PPP basis. These are things that will help our economy to grow very well. It's not just building the road. The company is also plugging in rail system into it. This is taking huge funds out of the federal government responsibility, you understand, to improve our development. Just yesterday, I heard again that BOA have reduced the cost price of cement. So it means that it is possible. Some Nigerians are already coming in to say that, look, we want this country to work. This is what we are putting in. At the end of it, what matters more is the quantity of production in order to gain your profit. If you're producing at a very high cost and nobody can purchase your commodity, it means you're out of business. But if you can lower the costs and produce more, sell more, then you're in business. So I hope more companies will follow the BOA example, bringing out the cost to a very realistic level because I don't see any reason why some of these costs are so high. Because when you just oppose it with costs from a neighboring country like Benin Republic, you see that people are taking advantage of the system in all retrospect, including air flight.
But these are the engagement that some are saying Labour is supposed to be having as against just facing the government and looking at matters of wages.
You must understand that the Labour leaders also have responsibility to their following. I've worked with Labour before in challenging the federal government to reduce the cost price of fuel, especially during the Adams Oshiomhole era. I've sat down at their meeting as a student leader to observe what is happening. Many a time, it is the members' cry that predates their decision. Sometimes the leaders are trying to say, let's go this way. But if the members' cry overshadows the leaders' reasonability, sometimes they tend to key into that cry of the members in order not to lose their seat.
Really?
Yes, it happens. In order not to lose their position.
Seat.
If you don't, at times, listen to them, they'll take you out and put one of them. Who pay attention to them, but the problem is not solved. So a meticulous leader must listen to them. Sometimes you want to carry out their advocacy. You go for negotiation. You try to get big wins and come back to them for them to see the best way to go about it and continue to engage them. But if you allow them to overrun you, the problem will continue to persist.
That's interesting.
It is. So, and it's good. It's the democracy at work.
Democracy at work.
Yeah.
That's how you see it. But then the problem persists, like you mentioned.
Well, I think, I think generally speaking, the government itself, needs to take charge in a lot of these things to make sure that, what we know is that everybody wants, to just be able to afford the basic things in life. We're all very similar in that way. Right? We may have different approaches to it. Some people may take a very extreme, as they would call it, socialist approach. Some people may take a capitalist approach to it, but we have the same goals, right? And I started off by saying that look, the government, we're quoting Adam Smith and the importance of economic prosperity, right? And the president's speech has highlighted, that look, we need to make our people more economically productive and create jobs. And one of the things that they've done is address this fiscal monetary crisis that we had with the multiple exchange rates to attract foreign investment. And foreign investment, is a precursor or leading indicator for more jobs to be created and more, more manufacturing productivity. And one thing I think I mentioned it earlier, but I want to really highlight it, is that the government, from what I see, seems to be very focused on supporting manufacturing activity, and that's a very good thing because in as much as we need a lot of jobs, there are almost about 40% unemployment in this country. Lots of young people that need or unemployed or underemployed. And the way to create long-term sustainable jobs for them is to ensure that we grow our manufacturing sector because there's almost an inelastic demand for high-quality goods and services, both in Nigeria and across the globe. And we need to be able to compete with the Chinese, with the Indians. And the way we can do that is through building our manufacturing skill base and productivity base.
In 20 seconds, your final words.
My final word is that Labour, all Nigerians, must be very tolerable. We must help the administration to look at various vistas of solution in order to solve this problem as one Nigerian. Okay.
A fine place to leave it. We must thank you, Public Affairs Analyst Ayodele Adewale, as well as APCU's stalwart ICT expert, Ni Gbodimo, for your time on the program. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's tell you now that the views and reactions of all our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Up next is Your View with the Ladies, and afterwards is This Morning with Yori Folarin. To stay safe. Bye for now.